Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third of the day's Create and Connect Ignite Talks. I'm Ben Wheeler. I'm an engineer and a learning designer on Scratch's creative learning and product teams. I've been at Scratch since 2018. And today, what we're going to do in this session is we're going to watch 4 pre-recorded videos of 4 different Ignite Talks, each about 5 minutes. And then the rest of the session is going to be a question and answer period where we can ask the presenters of those talks questions. People can ask each other questions. The presenters could ask each other. Participants can ask each other questions, and we'll all hopefully have an enriching conversation. So welcome, everyone. As you watch these talks, I encourage you to write down any questions that you have or thoughts that you have. And your questions are really, really welcome. There's no question too off topic. And we've had some really wonderful discussions in the previous Ignite sessions today. And I hope to have some more here. So with that said, let's go ahead and begin these Ignite Talk videos.
Hi, everyone. My topic is about hand-by-hand building capacity for creative STEM in Iraq schools. In this presentation, I will cover these points. Who is Ali Zubaidi, my journey with my son, coding for kids, challenge and cooperation, STEM lab, and my message. My name is Ali Zubaidi. I am from Iraq. I am educator in Ministry of Higher Education, and I am coding for kids founder, and I believe this generation will create the future digital world. My journey started when I was studying in Turkey, master degree in computer science with my wife, and my son Mustafa was 4 years old. 4 years old, and he was spent more time about used computer. And I want to invest his time to teach him something useful about technology. So I start with him to teach coding using code.org, algorithm, and in the block coding. Mustafa grew up and he learned more coding about something useful about coding using Scratch platform. Why Scratch platform? Because it has more features like interactive interface, and easy to use, and Mustafa can share what he created with Scratch with his friends. And I encourage Mustafa to explain to his peers what he learned about coding, because I wanted to develop a presentation skill. When I finished my study, when I back to my country, Iraq, we launched Coding for Kids initiative to achieve 18 cities to teach kids coding. I wanted to transfer the experience what I did with my son Mustafa. In our journey, we focused on the kids. They live in the camp to teach them in the block coding and concept, STEM concept, because they haven't computer there. And in our journey, we invest the most for education to teach kids, orphans kids, coding. Why we select mosque? Because it has because it is clean and safe for education. And also we invest the cinema hall for education. Why? Because kids like it, because it has more features like big screen, amazing sound, and comfortable seats. Also, we encourage the girls to enter the IT field because we want to achieve the gender equality. Also, we encourage the alpha generation participation in the project show to display what they did using coding in front of the people, because it is give them motivation to develop presentation skills. I was selected by the Ministry of Education to be one of the author of the computer book, and my task was about Scratch chapter. Also, we got more awards from different educational section during our journey. During our journey, we faced, when we organized more workshop about coding in different cities in my country, Iraq, we faced some challenges. So for this, what's these challenges? The challenges when we visit the school in the village, they haven't computer lab. For this reason, we announced about cooperation with Ministry of Education and Iraqi Private Bank to remodeling and provide a STEM lab in different city. This, as you see in this slide, we could remodeling the STEM lab in the village in the Baghdad city, and another one we remodeling the STEM lab in the Diyala city east of Baghdad. This is the first lecture after remodeling. My message to the world: education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And I want special thanks to my Ilah and my mom and my friend and my volunteer to support me to achieve this result. You can follow us by scan the QR code. Thank you very much. See you.
Hi everyone, this is Edward and I'm talking from Girona in Catalonia, Spain. And I want to share with you some ideas and examples on how can we use generative AI in our Scratch projects. First of all, I would like to start with a mention saying that yes, these new tools, these new technologies are giving us new opportunities, but at the same time there are also concerns and problems that we should take in consideration. And I highly recommend you to read this article by Mitchell Resnick, where he's defining his concerns. He talks about opportunities and also about the choices that we will have to make from now. To talk about the opportunities, I'm going to follow the creative learning spiral. I'm going to give examples and ideas for each one of these steps. So we start with imagine. How can we use generative AI to imagine our projects, our Scratch projects? For example, doing brainstorming, we can get starting points, like in this example with ChatGPT. I am creating a story with a Scratch. I want the main character to be a purple dog who lives on the moon. Can you suggest a couple of fun things that could happen? And then maybe you can use some of these ideas as a starting points for your projects. Or we can imagine new versions for all the sprites, like the Scratch Cat. In this case, on the left, we generated new faces of the Scratch Cat, and on the right side, you can see robotic versions of the Scratch Cat. I used the tools DALL-E and Stable Diffusion to do that. Or we can even imagine completely new sprites. For example, things that does not exist, like a tiger font. Or maybe the educator want to create culturally relevant sprites and take into account the cultures that are inside the classroom. I've been many times in India, so I think with examples from India sometimes, in this case, a girl with sari, or maybe a rickshaw, or something like this. We can also ask the children to draw by hand on paper and create something like the drawing that we can see on the left. And then, instead of drawing again all the same characters in all the different positions, we can get help from AI and create the costumes in an automatic way, like we can see on the right. And I used, in this case, the Meta AI app. We can create new backdrops. We can create extensions of old backdrops, like this one, the jungle backdrop in Scratch. In step 2, when we are creating, we are coding. And when we are coding, sometimes we need support because we have problems. We can use, for example, ChatGPT to ask questions about coding, and we'll get an answer in natural language. But even right now, we can use ChatGPT together with a plugin that is called Creative Code, and we get answers with pieces of code. Like in this example, what code should I use in Scratch to make a character disappear every time another character touches it? And we get the codes that we have to use. This is not a substitution of other ways. You can still go to the forums, ask your teacher, ask your friends, but now we have different ways to do it. Also, when we are creating, we can use things that we are generating with AI as parts of our animations, our stories, our games in Scratch. In this case, I'm showing you examples that mix technology and art and play with the idea of hacking art. In the third step of the spiral, play, for example, maybe we could use ChatGPT to create intelligent non-player characters, or for testing, we could use ChatGPT to simulate user interactions, and then in this way see if our story or our game is working well or not. Step 4, share. When we finish a Scratch project, sometimes we want to share this project with other people, and we create tutorials to show how we did that. We could use AI tools for creating presentations that help us to create tutorials, or we can use, for example, in this case, ChatGPT for a very specific thing that is related to credits. In my question, I'm saying, in my Scratch project, I have used the song Around the World by Daft Punk and the MoMA painting of the lion in the desert. How should I cite them in the notes and credits space? I get the answer, and I can put this answer in the notes part of the project page. Reflect. We can reflect about many things after we finish the projects, but one of the important things to reflect is about the coding concepts that we have learned. Again, with ChatGPT, together with the Creative Code plugin, we can do things like this. In my Scratch project, I have synchronized the dialogues by controlling the time with wait blocks. Is there an alternative way? And if so, can you give an example of code? And we are getting pieces of code that are explaining us how to do that with broadcasting instead of using the wait blocks, which is something very important to learn. Don't just think and learn with AI, but also learn about AI. Because if we are reflecting about EA, if we are even trying to create AI, we are thinking about how do we think. And in this way, we are activating a lot of metacognitive skills that are very useful, as Seymour Papert said many times. And these are the tools that I've been using to create all these examples. And thank you very much. And if you are interested in these things, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
My name is Maureen Ondicho. I work at IREX as the Research and Program Officer for the Girls Learning Through Technology. So welcome to today's session. It's entitled Scratch, the Competency-Based Curriculum Game Changer, a case study of Girls Learning Through Technology project. So the objectives of this session is to showcase experiences of girls learning through technology in Kilifi County in Kenya, and how Scratch has been able to enhance Kenyans' competency-based curriculum. This also to inspire action among individuals to build community of game changers who are passionate about using Scratch in the curriculum to improve learning outcomes. So let's explore GLTT. So imagine you're in a classroom where learners are empowered to create, explore, and learn through coding with Scratch. Now reflect on your observations of experiences. What are some of the challenges, success stories, or best practices of integrating Scratch into the classroom environment? So GLTT, or Girls Learning Through Technology, is a project in Kenya that is implemented by IREX, and it seeks to identify the use of technology approaches to support girls in education to ensure they improve their learning outcomes, and we work in low-tech schools through evidence-based practices and research. So from one of the GLTT research, we were able to find out if learners are able to know what coding is. And to our surprise, around 69% of the boys and 66% of the girls do not know what coding is. And this is where we began our journey through learning through technology, where we were able to define the basics of technology through learning the dance sequence. This is the basics of introducing coding in the classroom, where we are able to tell the learners to, for instance, switch off the light from where they're seated when the light on command is given. Remember, this gives them a step-by-step instruction guide on how they are able to switch on the line. And this gives them a basic foundation for them to start practicing coding in their classrooms. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Rodrigo Lemonica, and I'm a B design and code teacher at Beacon School, São Paulo, Brazil, for elementary graders in São Paulo, Brazil. I always have used code in my class to help students to solve problems. Because of the recent increase in AI technology, I decided to teach it to students using Scratch and machine learning for kids. My goal was to turn students into tech producers rather than just consumers of technology. For this to happen, students were invited to participate in Beacon Coding Club. So bi-weekly students meet me to developing coding skills in a coding literacy environment. In Coding Club, students learn computing science and coding using Scratch and Code Studio. The total participants were 20 boys and 15 girls, ranging in age from 11 to 14 years old. The students in the first moment built smart software that can recognize pictures as well as words using Scratch and machine learning. ML is a software bridging the integration of Scratch and using IBM Watson, such as cognitive technology and its neural network services. You can find more information in the QR code on screen. Our mission as educators is to use technology to inspire students. The project is based on students coding their own games about their favorite comic book characters using Scratch. I push them to overcome many kinds of challenges, including the driving questions. Is it possible for a programmer to teach a computer? Is it possible for a machine or a computer to identify a word or a name? Is it possible for a machine or a computer to identify pictures as well? And what about your favorite heroes? Can a computer define them? The project, leveraging Scratch to explore ethical approaches to AI, was created with elementary students ranging from year 6 to year 9. The primary goal was to expose students to design, coding, and AI concepts. During the lessons, students had the opportunity to learn how a neural network works, code their machine learning models, train the respective neural networks, and use AI ethically and responsibly. Everything at the same time, they coded their own Scratch games. Heroes and Villains project had run for a year, beginning in August 2022. To develop a dynamic hero versus villain game, the project blends narrative, hands-on, and maker education, Scratch coding, AI, neural networks, and creativity. The classes alternated between code literacy, game coding, and game board construction. The project has been divided into 8 stages. Stage 1, game environment and storyline. Students were first invited to create games, board games. They used a model called gamification model canvas. Character creation, step 2. Students were engaged by designing and constructing their own hero and villain characters. To do this, they used the hero's journey. Step 3. Building board games, the students began creating the hands-on board games with viable materials from Beacon, as you see, Makerspace. Step 4, learning Scratch coding. In this phase, students learn the fundamentals of coding and computing science. Scratch and Code Studio have made code education more interesting, hands-on, and age-appropriate. Step 5, learn machine learning. Students learn the fundamentals of AI, neural networks, and machine learning using the platform ML. Step 6, using AI Scratch. The project's high point is introducing AI-controlled, voice-guided characters. Students learn how to create AI for the characters using Scratch and ML. Step 7, test and iteration. To develop a refined and engaging game experience, they iterated on their code and artifacts and game mechanics. Step 8, share and showcase. At the completion project, students had the opportunity to showcase their Heroes and Villain Eye games to school in an exhibition session. Conclusion. Scratch and ML allowed students to learn and experiment AI concepts in a hands-on and engaging manner, while also learn about the importance of coding, ethics, responsibility, integration, and application of this technology. In this image, we see students testing new ideas in his computer for new games. Results. The project has given students a solid basis for understanding coding AI with ethics, allowing students to become responsible users and producers of technology in the future. The project with students demonstrates that teaching and empowering them to be tech creators rather than just tech consumers is possible. Empowering students to become responsible technology users and producers may give them essential future skills. If you would like to contact me, my email is on screen, and in this QR code, I will provide a shared folder in Google Drive with all documentation, pictures, and videos about the project. Once more, thank you, and thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for those wonderful presentations. So we have two of our wonderful presenters here with us, Maureen Ondicho and Eduard Montaner Perez. And please feel free to correct my pronunciation if I get it wrong. It's wonderful to have you both here. And I want to encourage all participants who are here to ask questions. There's no question too obvious. I think we're going to have a lot of questions and things to discuss here. So please help us out with some questions in the chat. And while people are thinking of some questions to ask, there's some questions I wanted to ask both of you. One that I wanted to ask each of you is what got you first interested in this topic as a way to engage with learners in creative coding? So maybe I'll start with you, Maureen. What started your path in being interested in this work? I'm sorry, I know the technical setup is a little tricky. Maureen, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, wonderful. So yeah, what was the beginning of this work for you? What got you interested at the start?
For me, it's basically because Scratch is simple to understand. It's a simple application that learners can understand. We are talking about learners in grade 4 and 5. So for them, it's quite interesting. They can make simple animations, they can make stories, and also their educators are able to use in their lesson planning. So they make the lesson quite interesting. They have because we are doing a research, we are able to report that learners find the lessons quite interesting, and also the retention of the content that they have learned in their classroom. So for me, Scratch is the game changer in terms of competency-based curriculum, which is currently being implemented in Kenya at the moment.
Wonderful, thank you. I wanted to ask you the same question, Eduard. What got you? Thank you. What got you interested at the beginning of this process?
Yes, thank you for the question. It would be a very long story, but I will make it fast, okay? So I'm a computer engineer, and I was doing research on artificial intelligence for a few years, and then I stopped and I changed my career, and I started with technology and education, and we created a research group, and we've been designing for more than a decade. And I started thinking about how can we use AI tools to in our creative computing projects. Okay, so for me it was a very easy connection because I'm already using Scratch to design creative learning, and with these tools we are generating things, we are creating things. So both things connect in a very easy way. So I started creating these ideas that you've seen in the presentation.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm still encouraging participants to put some questions in the chat. They can be questions for everyone here. They can be questions for a specific presenter. They could be questions about a different topic. I would love to know from all the participants here, what's being interesting to you? Either something that you noticed in these presentations that you're curious about, or just something that you liked. I would love to hear from you. I'm seeing a comment from Saurabh asking, as a parent, how do we ensure, thank you for putting that on screen, how do we ensure a child is engaged on Scratch after using the basic blocks like motion, looks, and etc.? This child, it sounds like, loses interest as things go complex. That's something that I've certainly experienced in my teaching and with doing Scratch with my own 2 children. I'm a parent of 2. And I'm curious, in your own education work, Maureen and Edouard, if you have thoughts on this question.
I can start. I think Scratch is very well designed, and as the Scratch team always say, it has white walls. Yes, it's true that some children lost interest when they have learned just the basic blocks of coding. But the good thing of Scratch is that you can connect coding with other things, with art, as we have seen in my examples, with music. Some children spend a lot of time in the music editor inside Scratch. Some children instead spend a lot of time creating the sprites, doing the artistic part. So I think we have to promote all the parts, not only the coding part. And for the children that after doing some activities very focused on coding, they get bored and they want to do other things, we should show them that we can connect Scratch with other things that they love, because it's very important to connect learning with passion. So if we can connect coding with music, with art, with anything that they love, I think it's a good way to keep their interest going on.
Maureen, I'm curious what your experience has been in Kenya, and if you have thoughts on how do you keep a child engaged as the programming gets more difficult?
We usually keep the children engaged by allowing them to connect to the online community, so they get to see what people out there are able to make in terms of projects. We also encourage peer-to-peer learning, because the children are quite creative, they're quite curious. So them learning from each other, they see what other people have done to encourage and really bring out their creativity, because these learners are quite young, so they want to explore. And Scratch is being introduced like it's something new to them, so they are really curious. We also encourage their educators to give them projects that they can do at home with their parents, if possible, if they can. I know we are working in the rural community, and some communities don't have sufficient devices, but we encourage their parents, we call their parents in to let them know what their learners are learning in school, so that they keep their children learning more and more. So also the online community helps quite a lot. They don't actually get bored. They want to learn more and more. And also their educators have reported they learn in a space called the tech lab. So the educators have reported that the children don't actually want to leave the tech lab. They're also forming what you call tech clubs, where they're able to they're given agency to create what they can create within the presence of their educators. So they get to explore. Some also want to come during the weekends with supervision with their educators. So for us, it's not boring at all. It's getting interesting by the day.
Thank you. I was thinking about this question too, and thinking about things that I've been pleasantly surprised to see learners getting excited about in some of the older grades, 13-year-olds old, 14 years old, doing Scratch. And one thing I've found is I find kids very compelled by video. And there's a video sensing Scratch extension. And there's also on the Scratch Lab website, which Kelsey just put a link in the chat, there's an experimental extension called face sensing, where you could move a sprite to the location of your eyes or your mouth or your ears and have it move from there, or detect like your head tilting. And sometimes I've found, something kind of coming in from a new angle there, particularly in an area that kids find compelling already, such as video, that can be a helpful door to try to open their interest back in. One thing that caught my eye, Maureen, in your presentation, I love movement, and I love ways to bring movement into education. And this activity that was called maybe dance coding, I was curious about that, and if that is about students coming up with algorithms for moving their bodies or for animating a dance on a screen.
Being a new concept, so we start with the basic foundation so that the learners are able to understand this is a sequence. For example, same as you're seated in class. If I tell you to switch on the light bulb, what will you do? So they are able to give us a step-by-step guide for them to be able to just stand from where they're seated and go and light the bulb in the classroom. So that creates a sense of, it's a step-by-step that will get me to in creating a project. So they are able to start with the simple steps of just picking the blocks from and making, for example, a cat to meow. So they are able to build up the blocks to make a very simple project. So that's the foundation that we start with our classrooms as they go on to create complex projects and start using extensions so that they are able to learn. And also because we are looking at being able to bring out their competencies in terms of being creative, being able to communicate with their peers when they are making the different projects. So it's been an helpful resource in terms of teaching learners using Scratch as a resource. Yes, it's a very useful resource that is also making learning interesting and avoiding the monotony of the traditional way of teaching, which is chalk and a teacher standing.
I love that idea of tapping into the expertise that kids already have about how they move, and to say you already have this knowledge of how to make sure the sequences represent what really happens. It reminds me, in Seymour Papert's book Mindstorms, he talks about kids getting stuck in Logo, this program from the 70s and 80s that was kind of before Scratch. And in Logo, there's this little triangle, the turtle. And they said when kids get stuck, they can always play turtle. They can stand up, and he sees kids do this. And they say, okay, the turtle's moving forward, and now the turtle's turning right. And they do it themselves. And this reminds me so much of that spirit, that knowledge is already in them.
Can I say something?
Please.
Because it's very well connected with this. It's a little advertisement, but in the next session, there is a panel about an European project that is called Montec. And our team is going to highlight some activities that are precisely about this, about using dance routines for learning loops, learning sequence of instructions, and these kind of things. So if people are interested in these kind of activities, please go.
That's very exciting. Which session is that?
It's in the next session. It's a panel, one of the panels.
Okay. Wonderful. I see this comment and question from Janet. talking about glitches that have happened with typed code and how glitches and problems come up with Scratch. So Janet is asking, do we ever show students a slide of the old school of how a typed programming language works and what you see when it goes wrong to help them sort of appreciate that Scratch and other block-based languages don't have those types of problems. I'm curious if either of you have ever used typed languages with your students or shown them examples of kind of the previous history of computer programming.
Well, in my case, when I started teaching programming was in a rural school in South India in 2005. So there was no Scratch. And I was using Logo, the language that you mentioned before. So yes, I've been using also text-based languages. But I think for lower grades, it's very useful to use visual programming languages, block-based languages. And with some tools, like for example, Microbit, it's very interesting because you can use both and at the same time, because with Microbit, you can use the make block language that is very similar to Scratch. It's also blocks that you have to attach together. But you have a tab there, and if you click, you can see all the code also in JavaScript or in Python. So children can start doing this transition from block-based languages to text languages. And that's interesting. But I think Scratch is very well designed, and it should keep being by blocks.
Thank you. I'm noticing in the chat some responses to Swaroop's question about engagement as well from John. These seem like really helpful leads and directions. And one thing John is mentioning is different curricula that are out there that try to sort of steadily build up capability and knowledge and understanding. John is mentioning CS First. There's so many that are wonderful. Another one that comes to mind that I've used in my teacher training is the creative computing curriculum, which Harvard publishes. The lead writer of that is part of the Scratch team, and she's presenting today, Kristen Balch. And then John also mentions the 4 Ps, play, passion, peers, and projects, in whatever order. And pointing out the importance of peers. And the Scratch online site can be a way that people find peers. Sometimes coding clubs can be, so that brings up a sort of question for me with this work. In both of your presentations about your work, Maureen and Edouard, you sort of talked about different learner experiences, and I'm curious your thoughts about how peers in particular fit in with those experiences. Are you looking for ways for people to collaborate together or to connect with each other as an audience?
Yes, in fact, we give a lot of importance to that, and we have projects. For example, we have one project that is called InventCat. When I say we have, I mean our group in the university. Yeah? We have a project that is about creating collaborative stories, co-creating stories with Scratch, and we divide a classroom into teams in one school, and this classroom is connected to another classroom in another school, sometimes in another country. And they collaborate for some months, exploring a social topic, changing comments through a blog, debating, and finally, in the last stages, they co-design and they co-create the story that they have thought, and it's a story about the topic that they have been researching, that it's a social topic. So yeah, we give a lot of importance to collaborate to other, and not only with your peers in the same classroom, but with your peers in other schools, in other countries, etc. Of course, when you do that, there are challenges. For example, the language, and also the time differences, and many things, but we've been doing it for years, and we've been connecting dozens of schools, and it's always very, very interesting.
Maureen, I'm curious about your experience with peers, and you mentioned the value of the online community as a place for kids to kind of find an audience. And I'm curious what you've seen with that, as well as finding peers within the classroom.
Yes, so there is a very great importance of peers. So let's start with the educators first. We basically train them because this is a very new concept. So we train the educators first for them to have the capacity and the confidence to be able to train their learners in their various schools. So for them, it's train a few teachers to be able to train other teachers within the school, and also to have the skills and confidence to train their learners. And seeing it has worked, especially using Scratch in all the learning areas, and also encouraging the learners to also learn from each other as peers. They are very comfortable from learning from each other. So we have learners that are very curious. We have learners who are learning very fast. Then we have learners who are learning slowly. So we encourage the educators to pair them up, get this learner who is fast, and pair him up or her with a learner who is a bit slow, so that they are up to speed. And also giving them more opportunities that are available for them to be able to increase their skills and join conferences to be able to add knowledge to whatever they know. So it's a journey that we have begun, and hopefully it will have an impact, especially in the education space. We have the coding has been launched in Kenya, so it's on the initial stages. So we hope through this research we'll be able to have an impact and show the impact, especially it being able to improve the learning outcomes of the learners in the schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also connecting.
No, please.
Yes, I was saying that connecting with these ideas of peer learning, I think it's very important also to give opportunities to children to teach each other. So after exploring and discovering something in Scratch, to give them some space, some time to teach the other teams or the other children what they have discovered. Because when they are doing that, they have to reflect about what they have learned, and then they have to explain it to another. And this way they are activating a lot of metacognitive skills that are very interesting. So we try to always have some space in our activities where children teach other children.
I was thinking of a similar thing, looking at the chat as well, because the conversation has been continuing there around these questions of engagement. Sora talked about this child wanting to remix a game, but it being complex, which is a thing I experienced too on Scratch. I think, oh, that's such a cool project. And I look at the code and I think, I don't understand. And I've been coding for decades. One thing I've found useful for kind of building up to understanding some more complexity have been that there are some YouTube tutorials by longtime Scratch creators who start with a simple version of something and build up in complexity. One that comes to mind is there's this user, Griffpatch. His projects are very popular, and he has a tutorial on YouTube about making platformers. And he starts with the most basic way you could do it and keeps getting more complicated. Once I saw some 8th graders who had gone through this tutorial and built a platformer game, and they were showing other classmates, here's how we did it. Here's why. Okay, why are we doing it this way? Here's the reason. And the other students were so attentive and interested. So this is the kind of thing that I think can happen when the conditions are right and when you get a bit lucky and when the students feel comfortable with each other.
Yes. One thing that maybe can help us in the next years to understand complex programs like the ones you were saying. Sometimes it also happens to me that I open a Scratch project and it's so complex and I don't know how to start to modify it or to remix it. No? I was showing in my examples that you can have now a dialogue with ChatGPT about coding. You can ask some question and you can get answers not only with natural language, but with pieces of code. This happens now already, but I think very soon we can also have a screenshot of the screen with a Scratch program, and we can put this picture in the ChatGPT or another AI tool, and it will interpret and help us to understand that code. I think that will happen very soon.
Yeah, it seems like those changes are happening fast and coming fast. One thing that I wanted to ask each of you was, what's been surprising to you in this work? What's not been what you expected to find as you went about this work?
You mean in general, in our work, or you mean in our topic that we were talking in the presentation?
I'm particularly thinking about the topic that you were talking about, but I'm also interested in what's been surprising to you more broadly in creative technology. I'm also curious for participants here, what's been surprising to you along the way in learning about this educational creative technology. So I don't know whoever might want to speak first. I'm curious about your thoughts, Maureen.
I can start. In AI, I think everything is surprising because it's happening all so fast. Everything is happening very fast, and for example, when you are creating sprites with DALI or with Midjourney or this AI tool, sometimes you get really weird results, and it's very fun. For example, I showed the tiger font in one of my slides, which is half tiger, half elephant, but that was the final result. But when you start co-creating with the AI and you start writing prompts, you get a lot of surprising things that you were totally unexpected. So this is fun. I think this is also engaging for the children. I've already tried some of these activities with children. They are mainly ideas right now, but I'm starting to try these things with, especially with pre-service teachers, because I'm teaching in the Faculty of Education. Yeah, basically, I think also was very surprising because when I was creating the presentation, my slides, I didn't know that the ChatGPT had this plugin that gives you the code of a Scratch when you ask a question. So it was a really surprise because I wanted to write some examples that ChatGPT can help you with natural language, but I realized that it can already help you also with code. So it was surprising. Yeah.
I've done a little playing with that plugin as well. I think link to it, Kelsey posted in the chat earlier,
Okay.
Or maybe just the name, the Create a Code Scratch. And something that's surprising, of course, is that these AI models, they mix in correct answers and totally wild guesses, and you don't know the difference. And so sometimes it invents a Scratch block that doesn't exist.
Yeah, many times.
Yeah.
So yeah, but this is also interesting to, if you are using it well, to develop critical thinking, because you really need critical thinking when you are interacting with these tools. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious for anyone here, for all participants as well, and Maureen, yeah, what are your thoughts?
So what is initially what was surprising is I thought it was going to be something complex for the learners, but it's something simple and easy to understand. It's something that can be incorporated in all the learning areas or the subjects that the learners are learning in class. It can be in two ways. The learners learning Scratch and interacting with the platform, and also the educators using Scratch in different lessons, in their lessons, to make their lessons quite interesting and reduce monotony, which has also made the learners present in school because they know they're going to learn that this Scratch. So for me, it's something that I'm thinking, why hasn't Kenya? Why didn't Kenya start it a long time ago? Like, why are we this late? But it's never too late. So I think it's something that all schools can embrace, especially schools in the rural community. We know devices is a challenge, but from what we have learned or what the educators are doing is with the devices they have, they allow the learners to each learner to perform a simple one of the tasks. For example, a learner can choose a sprite, a learner can choose a backdrop. So in that, they engage the learners even if the devices are not sufficient enough. So we are starting from where we are, but I know it will take us to greater heights. I know the ChatGPT has come along, but we still with the foundation, and as we move along and interact with the platform more and more with our learners. Yes.
I'd love to hear more about how you see that sharing happening in your schools, where you mentioned before the value of pairing up a student who's feeling more capable with Scratch and a student who may be struggling more to use it. I'm curious because I've seen a lot of classrooms in New York and elsewhere where there may be 3 or 4 computers that a room full of kids can use. And I've seen a lot of different solutions that teachers use. The connection may not be great with Maureen. It's a question that I think is relevant to many people. How do you sort of structure groups of students using a computer together and working on a project together? Hi, Maureen. Sorry, internet connections.
Yes.
So yeah, I was curious about how you see teachers structuring this kind of group work on projects with a single computer.
They encourage each learner to participate. They first select the groups in terms of capabilities. Like a group has to have one of the learners that is good with Scratch, so that they are able to bring a slow learner up to speed, or a learner who is really struggling. They also encourage more teachers to be present during the sessions, so that every group has an educator, so that every educator focuses on each group, so that the learners are able to learn and maximize the opportunity to learn.
Do you ever find that the student who's more comfortable with programming is the one at the keyboard and the mouse, and the other kid is kind of just sitting behind?
Yes. And that's why the educator comes in to ensure that everyone is given an equal opportunity or an equal chance to be able to participate. Otherwise, we'll have learners making projects while some are still lagging behind. So we ensure that we have equity and equality, and all learners, especially girls, tend to shy away So we encourage the educators kindly ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity.
I'm seeing a comment by a coworker of yours, it sounds like Lucy, in the chat, talking about some other kind of aspects of equipment and setup in classrooms with projectors, modeling activities. Yeah, I'm curious about that. I don't know how the projectors might be used.
So when we look at a classroom where a teacher or an educator is teaching a particular learning area, so they are able to put for instance, they are learning the digestive system. So they will put the digestive system on Scratch, so that they will divide the class so that he will do the talking, a little bit of talking, and then continue the lesson and project the Scratch project for the learners to learn that particular topic. So that is applicable when an educator is teaching using Scratch in a particular learning area. So for that, it makes the lesson more interesting. It makes the learners more attentive because it's a video or it's a picture. So every learner is attentive and wants to see or listen compared to the traditional way where the teacher keeps on talking. So with Scratch, the lessons become more interesting, and also the learners tend to remember because they saw a video or they saw a picture.
It's wonderful. I know we only have a few minutes left. I'm curious, Edward and Maureen, if you have any questions for the group and the participants. And I also just want to encourage people who are looking to stay in touch to share your email addresses in the chat. And I think one of the best values of a conference is the ability to stay in touch and reach out to each other afterwards. And Kelsey, I don't know if you still have my email address, but that would be lovely to share as well. And please, everyone, feel welcome to reach out to me anytime.
Yeah, please feel free to get in touch with me whenever you want. We are always open to collaborations and projects.
Thank you very much for listening to us. Feel free to get in touch and let's do the good work that we are doing to ensure our learners learn and they are great change makers in our community.
Absolutely. Those are wonderful words to end on. I'm also seeing one last question in the chat from Catherine, asking about creating effective teacher training for teachers who are hesitant to begin learning how to teach Scratch. And I think, Maureen, you mentioned the confidence of the teachers as being a really crucial element of that. I wonder if Maureen, you or anybody else.
Oops.
Connection's not great. I see a response from Lucy also in the chat.
Yeah. In my case, for example, when we do teacher trainings, one thing that we try is to do the trainings not only with the teachers, but with the teachers in the classrooms with children, so they can see not only the technology, but also our methodologies and how we approach the activities to the children. So it's a way that they can see that it's not so scary and they can really do it. So this is we do trainings with only teachers, but also sometimes we do the trainings with the teachers inside their classrooms. And I think it's a very interesting approach.
Thank you, and thank you both, Maureen and Edward, and thank you all participants for being here. Have a great rest of your conference, and I'll see you in other sessions.
Yeah, thank you very much.